Environment, Forest and Climate Change.
Environment, Forest and Climate Change.
So, thank you so much. Dr. Thomas from GIZ, the Dr. Principal, Kohima Science College. Many of the familiar faces, guests who have come from outside, researchers, the representative of the NGOs, ladies and gentlemen, friends from the media. First of all, let me thank the Kohima Science College and GIZ for inviting me and giving me this opportunity of kind of having a brief interaction with all of you and to speak on this topic. Now, as you're aware that the topic of the workshop is current and traditional practices for sustainable management of aquatic ecosystems. Now, each word here is pretty important. The traditional practices, the current practices, the sustainability, and how it kind of relates to the aquatic ecosystems. Now, to begin with, I think aquatic ecosystems is one of the areas which remains, very neglected and overexploited. And it's kind of, sort of, though we have a clear mandate at the central level, but it somehow remains like, nobody's child. In terms of neglect, I think we see how, our rivers and lakes are being polluted, how kind of, you see any road construction, if it's just by the side, how the whole kind of, the debris is pushed into the river, how our lakes have become, dumping ground for sewages and overexploited for tourism. And there's also a kind of lack of very clear-cut policy recommendations and public policy as far as ecosystems are concerned. Now, overexploitation also in terms of resources. So, despite the aquatic ecosystems being very important from ecological point of view, and despite they providing us some of the, not only the ecological services, but livelihood security, food security, they act as a buffer against the floods, they recharge our groundwaters, and a whole lot of other ecosystem services that are provided by the aquatic ecosystems. Somehow the kind of attention that we should have been paying is probably missing in terms of, as I said, it may be in terms of the policy framework or in terms of the attention in the management that we should have given. Now, as the topic of the workshop says, that here we will be trying to grasp whatever we can from the traditional practices and the current practices, which we can bring in terms of certain recommendations for sustainable management of the aquatic ecosystems. And while I'm all for traditional knowledge and learning from the practices, I think we cannot really substitute good scientific research and good data, as far as policy and management recommendations are concerned. And here it would be, I would appeal to the Kohima Science College and other technical institutions that please do come up with something, which is very concrete, which is kind of, which is an eye-opener. Because whatever you may say, whatever the traditional practices may say, I think nothing beats good data when it comes to public policy and, good recommendations. So while traditional practices, I'm all for it, and we must, imbibe whatever we can from there. At the same time, we should not, we should also be for, some good research and some good documentation and some good data for the aquatic ecosystems. But at the same time, we have policies, we have laws governing how the aquatic ecosystem should be managed, but unless and until it remains mostly within the books of law. if we really want to translate these things on the ground, I think we will have to take the community on board. That is, without this, nothing is going to move, or things are not going to really translate on the ground. They will just remain in the form of recommendations and, in terms of laws and rules and regulations. Especially here in Nagaland, where most of the natural resources are owned by the communities. They are the owner, of course. Without taking the owners on board, I don't think we can ever succeed in terms of bringing the desired results. And not only that, as department or as government, we have limited resources, we have limited reach, we have limited outreach. But as civil society, as your outreach, your sort of reach to the nooks and corners is far, far beyond that any government can ever have. So in that sense, I want that whatever we discuss, whatever knowledge we gain, whatever recommendations we come up with, they should not remain confined to this hall or this audience. It's very important that we should try to take them out to the common man. Because as I said, that unless the common man is on board, unless they realize, you may have hundreds of traffic laws governing this and that, but unless the sense of driving is there, the moment you cross a speed limit camera, you will again speed up. So those are the sort of things that this sense of ownership, that sense of protection of the aquatic ecosystems must somehow be imbibed into the civil society. That is when we can really think of making some difference as far as the protection and sustainability of the aquatic ecosystems is concerned. I think I'll just end up here, and I wish all the best to the workshop. I hope that we'll come up with something tangible, something which is meaningful. I extend my good wishes to the organizers, to the participants, and hope that it will be a fruitful exercise and we'll come up with something concrete and tangible. And thank you once again to the organizers for giving me this opportunity, and all the best to the participants.